Leaf talk, and I'm telling you, this is getting, boy, talk about up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Oh my God. You realize, Aaron, one thing I want to say right off the top. You do realize that this is giving us an impression, a scary one, that the Leafs are playing well and playing badly so consistently. I see a 28-game playoff for them to win the Cup.
You know what? I'm not going to object. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be the one that's spending any money on going to actually see the games live and in person. So, that's on the season ticket holders. But at this point, if it takes us 28 games to win the Cup, it takes us 28 games to win the Cup, and I'll take it.
How many games are in a year?
Calendar or season?
No, season. 82, right?
Yeah, 82. It could be up to 110 games.
Is it 82?
Yep.
So it's more than a third, because 3 times 28 is 84.
Yes, sir.
So it's more than a third of the season is made up, or could be made up, of playoffs. We've actually seen that. I seem to recall a team won a cup that went through all 7-game series. I remember that being a situation.
Yeah, it's been a thing before. I'm more than certain it'll be a thing again. It's just waiting to see if it actually happens, which is the fun part,
And by fun part, you mean?
Biting my nails, sweating bullets, and living through it while, guzzling antacids to keep my stomach.
We're not talking sarcasm here. We're talking minimizing or maximizing.
Minimizing the possible deleterious effects on my body.
Is. Minimizing the painful part while maximizing the fun part.
That sounds about right.
Oh, I hate math. It's been a season for the ages. It's been a season. The last game. Why don't we start with that? The last game that they played. I'm sure you might have a comment or two, and I guess the comments would start with Nylander and the former captain, maybe. Huh?
Well, I'm glad that Domi scored the goal that he did because he looked absolutely fantastic when he did it. I'm glad Bobby McMahon has managed to reach a 20-goal season. Ryan Poehling and Sean Couturier put in a decent showings for Philadelphia on their end. Unfortunately, it didn't help stop the losing streak that has now made it to 6 games. And after it was all said and done, Anthony Stolarz only had to make 17 saves on 19 shots. Couple that with William Nylander's 2-goal and 2-assist performance, as well as John Tavares with 2 goals and 1 assist, and David Kampf scoring on a breakaway. And at the end of the day, this was an absolutely thorough pantsing. And I kind of felt bad for Philadelphia after a fashion because it was like they couldn't seem to get one. Nylander put one in off a defenseman's skate. There was another shot that went off the inside of the goalie stick and into the back of the net. Lawton, unfortunately, is still on an 8-game drought here, so he's been running into issues in that regard. And Nick Robertson was held pointless, so that seems to have cooled him off a little bit. But just a good all-round effort.
It is amazing to think that the Leafs were part of a drubbing. And an old man like me reflects in the distant past when we saw a lot of these games and the Leafs were on the wrong end of them. How much things have changed. And, the one thing that can be said for this group, the core 4 lifetime, is that Leaf fans haven't seen, a team that's played terrible over a season. Over stretches, yes. But terrible for this version of the Maple Leafs, for those with, less hair, the hair that they have that's gray. The 7-2 losses were often the ones the Leafs took on at home. They would get drubbed at home. So I think over the past few years, in fairness to this group of Leaf players, they need to be at least respected for the fact, the organization needs to be respected for the fact that they're not a total embarrassment. They've been in embarrassing situations before Shanahan. The 3-1 lead in the series against Boston. The 3-1 lead, was it 3-1 or 3-0? No, it was 3-1 lead against the Montreal Canadiens and the losing. But I think the difference between the Maple Leafs of today, this era, and of eras past, remember, if they finish first, they've been around for over 100 years. It would be that many times they finished first. That many. One hand. I got a thumb, extra thumb. That's over 100 years. So, we're seeing the lucky people who are watching this version of the Maple Leafs are seeing history being made. By history, I mean a Leaf organization that has produced great players all at once, that have done, feats of, great feats of scoring prowess. We're used to the Austin Matthews. Now we're at the point now where we're going, wow, Aaron, 3 40-goal seasons for William Nylander and more.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they're piling up record after record after record, and nobody seems to be noticing it because these records happen to come in games where fans like to lose their minds, for lack of a better term. This drubbing was expected. The fact that Nylander reached the 40-goal mark for 3 straight seasons now is secondary, because it was a bounce back game. The fact that Philadelphia is now 1-8-2 and Tortorella has a continued record of futility in Toronto takes a back seat to the fact that, hey, they won a game that they finally should have. And it's a shame because a lot of that gets overlooked, and this is some of the best hockey that we've seen the Maple Leafs play.
And Tavares did another 30-goal season.
Yeah,
on that
his consistency is absolutely astounding. So,
I got to do Aaron. I got to do David's show, Aaron, and we talked about the Leafs and that second line. Talk to me about the second line. Talk to me about Bobby McMahon, $1.4 million a year, another year on that contract. And, I've always, how much I feel that they have to have more deals like Bobby McMahon for them to do well. And they need players like Bobby McMahon to poke their heads through, right? To take this team through the Stanley Cup playoffs. And a lot of people, David reminded me, forget that Bobby McMahon was hurt last year going into the playoffs. They could have really used his timely scoring.
No, they definitely could have. And really, what it really boils down to is finding the best fit. In this particular case here, Bobby McMahon works particularly well alongside John Tavares and William Nylander. In the same way that Matthew Knies, who's on a bargain basement contract as well, works extremely well alongside Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. The Leafs have all the pieces. It's just a question of jigsawing them into the right place. I mean, even Lorentz, Kampf, and Yarncroke on the fourth line, that's just a big old bag of not fun to play against. And that's what it needs to be. But they've also gotten some timely scoring from Steven Lorentz out of this. David Kampf has proven that he can score on breakaways if necessary. The only real question mark at this point is really the third line with Scotty Lawton, who hasn't been performing as well as perhaps he was expected to when he was brought on the trade line, production-wise. Max Domi has proven to be a bright spot here and there. Certainly his play in the last 5 to 7 games has shown that he can be absolutely deadly when it comes to the playoffs. Nicholas Robertson, unfortunately, blows hot and cold. We need to find a way to keep him going. But when you look at the whole on the left-hand side with Knies and McMahon performing the way that they have, the Leafs are getting much better dollar for value than they ever expected to out of them. So In that sense, they've kind of hit the jackpot for now. Unfortunately, once all these contracts come up for renewal, I'm afraid it's going to be something entirely different. But we'll have to see where that goes. I mean, Comp still has another 2 years left. He's getting $2.4 million. Max Domi's getting another 3.75. Yarncroke is getting 2.1. Lawton's getting 1.5. Bobby McMahon
all of them making more than Bobby McMahon.
Yeah, Bobby McMahon is making 1.35, and Matty Nyes is making $925,000.
Well, Nyes is still a kid, and McMahon is 28. So it wouldn't surprise me. I know this probably sounds silly, but I could actually see the Leafs signing McMahon, giving him an extension, a new contract, even before the contract's done, just to give him the little, hey, we appreciate you thing, right?
I can see them doing that, even though it's out of character for the Maple Leafs.
It would be a smart move. It would be a smart move in my mind.
Guaranteed to keep him around for a little while longer, even at the age of 28, as he's getting up towards, the wrong side of 30, for lack of a better term. And I'm sorry to everyone who's 30 plus out there, but in hockey terms, once you hit 30, you're on the wrong side of it. But yeah.
Oh, we got a guy named Tavares who's telling us, no, it's not true. We have the odd player, the rat in Florida that came from Boston.
Still hasn't played his first game with them yet.
But he's not playing, so maybe that's a bad example. But still, you know what? The other thing, another over 30 guy that the Leafs have and are not using, but has finally got on some skates and is skating around for the Marlies, Ryan Reeves has decided to, I think I'll lace him up. And he's getting a chance to get up to speed. What are the things you think that the Leafs are looking for to get him back up again? What's going to bring him back up?
Well, this is where it gets difficult, because he can definitely contribute at the AHL level for sure. Being an energy guy, being a guy that brings the noise in the room, as well as providing a lot of sandpaper on the ice. But they have another guy like that down there too, by the name of Kyle Clifford. So whether the Marlies can adapt and use that is one thing. But as it currently stands, for Reeves to return to the NHL before playoffs, a player would need to be on LTIR, opening up cap space for him and his $1.35 million salary. Because the Leafs only have $195,332 available at this point, he's going to have to stay in the AHL until the playoffs, where the salary cap disappears. Now, he's only played 35 games with the Leafs this season. He's still a great teammate.
If he stays in shape, Aaron, let's be clear. Yeah. Only 11 more games. In 11 games, he's going to be able to come up and the cap won't matter.
Exactly. But it's a question of keeping him sharp while he's down there. And if he's willing to participate in AHL games. Because as it currently stands, there are some dudes that may not necessarily want to play in the AHL, man.
Well, no, he's one of them. But it's not like his toolbox is full of different things in it. His toolbox is pretty simple. So, preparing for the playoffs, what does he have to do to prepare for the playoffs? Forecheck. He's got to stay in shape to forecheck. He's got to make contact. And a guy like that relies on contact, as long as he keeps his body, ready and willing to take a little bit of a beating, right? That's all he needs. Timing what for a forechecker? What's the timing for a forechecker? The first time they go in and get hit. I'm sorry, but he can stay there. The numbers game comes down to he is what he is. He's going to be what he is on the ice. But you've got some young guys with the Leafs that the Leafs want to keep. Like, what do? Send Robertson down? Well, he won't make it all the way down if they try to send him. So, this is where they're at. This is where the Leafs are at. This is where Ryan Reeves is at. And I don't think he didn't know that this was going to happen. The numbers game is what it is in the NHL. and the Leafs don't have the cap space to do anything that would work for him being up here right now. And that's something that is something that he has to convince them that he's worth the trouble, right? And would it be fair, Aaron, to say that this year, for very short stretches, he's proven that he belongs?
Oh, for sure. One of the things that has been a hallmark of him proving that he belongs is being one of the first guys in on the forecheck, banging and crashing. Getting in there first has been something I think that has elevated Reese's play to the point where the Leafs brass really can't ignore him if he wants to do that sort of thing. But with only 11 games left in the season here and 11 games left with the season for the Marlies, it's a tough call. The Marlies' magic number to clinch a playoff spot at this point is 18, and with 11 games left, there is the possibility that they may not necessarily do it. But I have faith in the boys. They played well so far this season, and with only 11 games left, I'm reasonably certain that they're going to be making the playoffs. So if there isn't room for him up on the Leafs, or they can't find a role for him, he can continue to be useful to the organization, even down in the AHL. So that is the bonus that we're looking at.
And when the playoffs come, he'll be a candidate to come up, depending on the team they're playing and the way the way they anticipate a team playing. Right? He has his usefulness. Tell me a little bit, Mark. Let's switch over to the Canadian Football League. Once again, the Montreal Alouettes just separate themselves from a president, this time Mark Waitman.
Yeah, I personally didn't see this coming. I'm not sure if you had any rumblings of this coming back over the pipeline, but the Montreal Alouettes announced today that President and CEO Mark Waitman is stepping down effective this Friday. So, with the Owls back at the top of the CFL and over 21,000 fans at each of the team's home games, Waitman says that he's very proud of the work that they've done since April 2023. Pierre-Carl Pelado said he wanted to thank Mark for his commitment and dedication over the past 2 years, saying that when he became owner of the team, he didn't hesitate to return to the organization so that we could work together to restore the team to its former glory and renew its close relationship with the fans. And that's exactly what Mark Waitman has done. This seems like a particularly short tenure, just 2 years before
he's 2 years.
Well, granted, it's fantastic 2 years, especially with their Grey Cup win in there. I know Danny Machocha is going to become the senior vice president of football operations and general manager. So that is good. Rene Masson is the director of finance, will become senior vice president, chief operating officer, and chief financial officer. Mark Waitman, isn't going to be replaced as president. His duties are going to be split up amongst the top brass.
The promoted.
Yes, exactly. Well, sideways, but yeah.
Yeah, the promoted. All right. The PWHL, the Sirens score and win.
This was not something I don't think that anybody was expecting. The New York Sirens were down 3-0 going into the third period against the Ottawa Charge on Tuesday night. They had a shorthanded jailbreak goal from Rebecca Leslie, followed by goals from Emily Clark and Breanne Jenner. However, in the third period, Jessie Eldridge put her team on the board, 125 into the third. Then Sarah Fillier found the twine to cut the Sirens deficit to 3-2. Jade Downey-Landry then scored a pair of goals less than 4 minutes apart to give the Sirens their first lead of the game. And Fillier added to New York's tally with their second of the night. And Alex Carpenter sealed the win with an empty net goal. Cale Osborne, who actually comes from Westport, Ontario, earned her second career win for the Sirens, both of which have come at TD Place, turning aside 15 of 18 shots. This does nothing to clarify the playoff picture whatsoever. The Victoire are still in first. They still have not clinched, thanks to their 2-1 loss. But Scepter's Fleet and Minnesota Frost are all still in the hunt. As far as I'm aware, the New York Sirens and Ottawa Charge are very close to being eliminated, but they haven't been eliminated quite yet.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, boys.
The Legion serves veterans and remembers those who stand on guard for Canada. We've been doing it for close to a century while helping build stronger communities and a stronger country for all. We are 250,000 strong and growing in cities, towns, and villages from coast to coast to coast. Everyone can join the Legion. Join today and stand with us. Visit legion.ca/Canada.
Aaron, talk to me about Formula One and Yuki Tsunoda.
So there's been a rather interesting start to the series. During the first race, Liam Lawson managed to get himself out of the field completely. In his second race, he did not perform well at all. Meanwhile, the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, or VCARB, have been performing actually much better than expected. Yuki Tsunoda, in particular, has managed to pick up points in both races so far this season. Because of Lawson's lack of performance and apparently how difficult the Red Bull car itself is to drive for anybody who isn't named Max Verstappen, Liam Lawson, is on his way out. And Tsunoda is now going to be representing Red Bull alongside Max for the Japanese Grand Prix. It's interesting because Honda, the engine supplier for Red Bull Racing, had been pushing for Yuki to get a seat with the big team for quite some time now. And seeing as Suzuka is the home race for Honda, it seems like a particularly opportune time to elevate him. So we'll have to see how this goes. I'm hoping it will go better for Yuki than it does for Liam. And if it doesn't work out, I do hope that Yuki will be able to retain his seat with the Racing Bulls.
Let's go over to hockey and the Canadian teams. Les Habitants. They go home. They're a no-show in St. Louis.
Yeah, Les Habitants were conspicuously absent playing St. Louis this week. They unfortunately ended up being on the wrong side of a 6-1 score. It was a complete and utter shellacking. They tied the score before the end of the first, but at the end of the day, it was not a good scene for them.
The Sabres beat the Sens, and Aaron, I was joking that every time the Sens play the Leafs and win, they go into a tailspin. They did it again.
Dude, I don't even know what happened here.
I'm telling you, it's that the Leaf game is the best. That's their peak, and then they got then they got to get back up there again. When's our next Leaf game? That's what I think is going on in the dressing room and in the management.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, Tage Thompson got the go-ahead goal 123 into the third period, and Lindy Ruff became the NHL's second coach to win 600 games with one franchise as they won 3-2 over the Ottawa Senators last night. Jack Quinn and Jacob Bernard-Docker also scored for Buffalo, and James Reimer, he of Maple Leafs fame, stopped 34 shots and winning 2 straight starts for the first time this season. Things have been rough for James. Now, as it currently stands, Lindy only trails Al Arbor, who won 740 games with the New York Islanders. I don't know how much longer Lindy was going to have to coach in order to reach that mark, but I really hope he reaches it.
That's just mean. That's mean. Yeah, how many years?
Buffalo.
How many years does it take to win 16 games a year, and how long it'll? No, never mind. It's just the math is too much. Yeah, well, let's talk about the Jets, and they needed a point to clinch a playoff spot, the second team to do so. And ironically, they did it last night against the team that did it first in the other conference, the East Conference, and they are the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, this was a Winnipeg Jets team that unfortunately couldn't hang a loss on the Buffalo Sabres to clinch a spot, which is just bonkers to me, but I'm glad that they managed. I'm glad they managed to do it. Ovechkin is now sitting at, I believe, 889 goals, which puts him 6 away from cracking Gretzky's record.
Now 1,000 is within his reach. It's just 3+ years. If at 30 goals plus a year, he could reach 1,000. Imagine who's about that.
it'd be interesting to see for sure, and that would definitely shatter the record. But I'm glad to see that both teams recognizing the fact that they want to be number one, put everything on the line for this particular game.
Playoff preview.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That playoff preview is all I was saying.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk about the Oilers and how surprising they were.
Yeah, it's never a good time for the Edmonton Oilers to be without Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, let alone both of them at the same time. Draisaitl is due to come back next week, so that's good. But the Oilers' 5-4 win against the Kraken on Saturday was just the third time in 10 seasons that McDavid and Draisaitl were both out of the lineup, and the first time because of injuries. The Oilers held McDavid and Draisaitl at a regular season finales in 21-22 and 23-24, so they could rest ahead of the playoffs. But it's not like they were injured at that point. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins got an extended run at center because of that, and it's done wonders for his game. He has 9 points in his past 4, including his first hat in 6 years against the Kraken in their win the other night. And long overdue, Jeff Skinner, who has 1,066 career regular season games without a playoff appearance. That's the most in NHL history. Is also trying to prove his worth. He's been in and out of the lineup as a healthy scratch this season, spending most of his time in the bottom 6. But he's scored 3 goals in the past 2 games while getting his 2 highest ice time totals of the season. So glad that those 2 individuals are stepping up. And once McDavid and Draisaitl get back, it'll get even more interesting.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Flames, and they're so close to flaming out, but then again, they charge up a little. The spark flies.
Yeah, Nazem Kadri scored his 2nd goal of the game, 3:58 into overtime. Thank God they didn't have to go to a shootout. That's a whole different ball of wax for the Flames. But Klopka and Rasmus Andersson also scored. They've now won 4 straight. They're 4 points behind St. Louis for the final playoff spot in the Western Conference, with 3 games in hand, which has them sitting pretty. Jaden Schwartz had a power play goal and an assist for the Kraken, who lost their 3rd in a row. And Ty Cartier and Jordan Eberle also scored. Eberle's 9th goal with 1:30 remaining in regulation was the one that tied it next. Seattle's going to be opening up a 3-game homestand against the Oilers on Thursday, and the Flames are hosting Dallas the same night.
Canucks, a 4-3 overtime victory over the Devils.
Yeah, this team, honest to God, this team has been really baffling. There are days when they look like world beaters, and there are days when it's like, yeah, no, you maybe deserve a wild card spot.
Sometimes they're the bug, and sometimes they're the windshield.
Yeah, exactly. But with this shootout win over the Devils, it was a really gutsy comeback effort. Thatcher Demko returned from a lengthy injury absence, stoned his opponents. This is the same thing that happened 2 years ago in Dallas when the starting goaltender made 34 stops after missing 35 games with a groin strain. He was poised to do it again in Newark, but hopefully with less stress. Demko got back and knew his club had to play a low-event playoff-style game against the Devils. And with Elias Pettersson and Nils Höglander out, it was gonna be difficult at best. I'm glad they managed to pull it off. I'm glad they're sitting a little bit prettier now, but pressure is still on them to come through.
All right. Well, Aaron, it was fun doing this. Thanks for doing it, buddy.
Not a problem. We'll see you Friday, Frank.
Say hi to your loved one, and I hope you have a really good night. And that was a good game last night. We'll see what the next games. They've got a couple interesting games coming up.
Yep, for sure. Against San Jose this Thursday, and then they've also got the Ducks and the Kings coming up. So
that's right. The California trip. California dreaming, baby.
Definitely.
See you soon, bud.
Take care.
Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Don't forget Candid Frank. Live 10:30 on YouTube. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy the evening. It's getting warmer. The sun's coming out. The sun's up a little longer. It's just getting away from winter, but we're still getting snow up here. Bye.